Episode 3 of the Holistic Travel Therapy Podcast is now live. How's everybody doing today?
Welcome, guys. Thank you so much for tuning back in to episode 3. We are so excited to come to you with today's episode. We've been researching a lot, getting some good information to bring to you.
Yeah, no, this is a big one. This is one that we started changing a little bit in 2023, but 2024, we've really taken that next step and we
Yes,
want to talk
yeah,
about food. We want to talk about diet. We want to talk about nutrition today.
yes. Again, my name's Courtney Condon. I'm an occupational therapist,
John Wilson, PT.
and we are here to kind of tell you a little bit within the broad sense of nutrition. Again, we are not registered dietitians. We want to make that known. We are just kind of providing you with the evidence, the most researched, scientific backed diet, um, diet. I don't want to say trends, but information
Yeah,
that's going
definitely.
to provide you the optimal lifestyle for health, wellness, brain function, good gut health. So, a list of everything.
Yeah, and I want to just start out by stating a fact, and I heard this last year, and I looked it up, and it is a true fact that serotonin, first of all, is a neurotransmitter in the body that basically is our feel good hormone. It helps us feel good, happy, healthy, all that good stuff. Serotonin, you want more serotonin. The production of serotonin is 90% in the gut.
Exactly.
So basically, happiness, health is in the gut. Like we think, okay, it's in the brain, the heart, all this stuff, but really it's that serotonin is being made and produced in the gut. So whatever you're putting in the body is actually really affecting your mood in general. And I started to notice this with my diet and my mood and just the overall change because before, a couple years ago, even I would say diet is like, okay, like if I want to look better, you know what I mean? Like,
Right, right,
all right,
yeah.
I'll shed a few pounds, like let me eat some fruits and vegetables, or let me just, starve myself for a little bit, not doing the right stuff. So now to know that it not only affects how you look, but also how you
How
feel,
you
and
feel.
more
Exactly.
than anything, it's how you feel. So
Yeah. So there is this amazing gut brain axis that we are starting to learn more about in the research. And one of the studies that I was reading recently, and all the references, guys, will be posted in the show notes. So,
check it
science
out.
fact references at the bottom. It was saying that between the gut brain axis and that connection, that the brain is actually the receiver of the information. So we think that the brain is transmitting a lot of stuff to our body, but actually we're finding out that when it comes between the gut and the gut is the one that's sending the information to the brain, and the brain is the one that's receiving it. So exactly like you said, John, once we're putting those optimal foods in our body, that serotonin is being produced, and we're sending that signal to the brain to release those hormones to get that good mood, that feeling good, and then the opposite can be the same as well. So, in some of the things that we started implementing, as well as what the research shows, is that the Western diet, so United States, highly processed foods, high sugars, uh, high in trans fat, high in saturated fat, low in whole fruits and vegetables, right? That is deteriorating our gut wall. It is causing increased inflammation. It is causing decreased gut motility or the movement of the food within our gut. And it is therefore associated with some of those symptoms associated with stomach pain and gut issues and that like bloating, gas. And then it leads to that signal to the brain that is similar to what people like to call brain fog, right? So then you're kind of lethargic, you're sluggish, you're not feeling super good. So therefore, your actions, your everyday lifestyle actions, kind of reflect that brain state, right? So kind of sluggish, kind of slow. Um, but then if we flip and we look for a less processed food diet, a food richer in fruits, vegetables, something like the Mediterranean diet. So a lot of the research has been done on specifically the Mediterranean diet that has nuts, seeds, whole grains, lots of olive oil, fish, things like that are all these amazing benefits that we'll get to later. So,
Yeah, no, definitely. And another thing that I learned about honestly recently within the last few years is that we have billions, maybe trillions of bacteria in our gut, living in our gut right
Right,
now.
right.
And when we eat processed foods, when we drink alcohol, when we do these
Yes,
things,
alcohol
we're
huge.
killing the bacteria in our gut. And these bacteria are super important for digestion.
Hmm.
And again, like we talked about at the beginning, the production of serotonin and all this stuff to be able to function optimally, the bacteria, they need probiotics and prebiotics.
Hmm.
So basically, where are we going to get those? Okay, a lot of people are like, okay, like I'll take a probiotic every day, but that still isn't the best thing
Right,
to do.
right. Not the most evidence based. Um, there's lots of good probiotics out there, and if you're taking a probiotic, we're not saying like it's not for anything.
Yeah,
I take a probiotic, but like John was about to say, that getting in your probiotics through other sources like
yeah,
fermented foods is really what we've taken into stride in 2024.
definitely. That's again super recent information that has come out in the last few years. Fermented foods, including sauerkraut, kombucha that we
Kimchi,
drink a lot.
yogurt.
Yes, yogurt has live probiotics. Um, but you need both. You need probiotics and prebiotics. So you kind of need, you want to kind of see, okay, am I getting both of these with whatever whether it's supplements or food. But yeah, just kind of looking up, fermented foods in general, because there's a lot out there.
Yeah.
Again,
Hmm.
6 or 7 things that we bought recently that we've been eating I've never heard of in the past, like before, recently. So
Right.
endives and
Yeah. So endives are going to be one of those prebiotic foods.
yeah,
So we're thinking when we think prebiotics, we're thinking garlic. I believe specifically the yellow onion. There's also some other foods that provide that prebiotic. It's kind of like there are different types of fertilizers essentially for the gut uh, bacteria, those prebiotics and probiotics. So incorporating those foods into the diet. So besides endives, we've started to do more of the sauerkraut, right?
yeah, definitely.
Yeah, it's a again, and it was something that I was never introduced to or very seldomly introduced to
No,
growing up.
if I ate sauerkraut, it was on like a really big hoagie with like a white, bun and everything, just trying to make it as bad as possible for me. But now just throwing it on like a salad or something, or mixing it in with a bowl of like whatever chicken and rice with
Yeah,
some,
quinoa and things
yeah,
like that.
just throwing it in there. Honestly, it's been great.
Yeah. Um, and same thing with the kombucha. I know a lot of people don't particularly like the taste of kombucha,
Yeah,
and there's lots of them out there on the market. And then we kind of run into, well, kombucha has a lot of sugar, which some of them do. So just making sure you're being mindful of that, and not having like a, 2 kombuchas every day, being like, I'm getting in my probiotics. Um,
yeah, no,
so,
definitely. You want to check the added sugar, because
mhm,
kombucha is gonna have sugar no matter what. So a
right,
lot of them
thank
will
you.
say like, 10 grams of sugar, 0 grams of added sugar. So that's perfectly fine. But if it says 20 grams of sugar and 15 grams of added sugar, it's really not the best kombucha out there
Right,
for
the
you.
best quality.
But I mean, if you look at just soda in general, and you look at
Yeah.
Dr Pepper, Sprites. If like for
How
me,
much?
even honestly, recently, in the last few years, like I was always like, all right, Sprite is lighter. You know what I mean? Like it's lighter. It's
Yeah.
it's 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 clear. It's not like Pepsi, Coke, Dr Pepper, where
Right,
I'm like,
right.
oh, I know those have a lot of sugar in it. Those are bad for me. But even like Sprite and Starry and the recent ones, like just literally in a can, there's like 30 grams of
Yeah, 30
added
to
sugar
40 grams of
added.
added sugar.
Like they just pour that thing on there to make it taste sweet and good. And honestly, it's terrible because that sugar is going to cause inflammation and a lot. And
Right, like what we just talked
yeah, and
about.
it's a
Yeah.
known thing nowadays that sugar is bad for you. But I don't think people understand how bad it is for you. It really disrupts
Right.
everything in the gut, which then disrupts everything in the brain.
And it's not just, again, if someone was eating super clean and having, a little bit of soda a day, hey, we all have our vices, right?
Definitely, yeah.
But the issue with specifically, the standard American diet or the Western diet is that it is in a lot of things. So we're getting in sugar from that Starbucks latte we just had this morning, right? And then we go and we eat a donut for breakfast. So we're getting a little more sugar in there. And then maybe lunch, we try to have a salad. But if we look at some of those salad dressings, even a lot of added sugar in salad dressing,
Yeah.
and then the soda. So it just, I'm saying it just piles on.
Yeah.
So as long as we're being a little bit more mindful about where our sugar intake is coming from and how much we're getting in throughout the day, um, it's really going to help to promote that good bacteria in the gut as long as we are not overdoing it on the sugar consumption.
Yeah.
When we switched from um, I should say, a low fat diet, a lot of the buzzwords back, in the 90s were like, we need to go low fat, low fat. What companies did is they substituted fat for sugar. So we just did a little switching around here. We increased the sugar intake in some of these foods and decreased the fat. And unfortunately, people didn't realize that because they were so focused on going low fat
Yeah.
because that was the trend that they didn't realize how much added sugars they were getting.
Yeah, and you need fat. You need
Right.
unsaturated fat is the best fat. This can be found in salmon, fatty fish, avocados, really great source of
Nuts.
yeah, nuts, great source of unsaturated fat. You need that. You need that in your diet for optimal nutrition. But the thing is that because, like you said, with the processed foods and whatnot, and just trying to reduce them, that's the biggest word. We want to reduce these things. We want to reduce the sugar. We want to reduce the processed foods because obviously at the end of the day, we live in America, and it's super hard to go completely 100% clean. Obviously, it's what we strive for. We want to feel our best. We want to do this and do that.
Exactly.
But you know, just making little changes here and there. For example, sodas. I would always drink, um, orange soda or orange pop, something like that. Now, if I'm craving an orange soda, I'm finding like an Olipop or a Poppy,
Right.
and
There's
basically,
so many
and
alternatives
they're
out there
and they're
now.
all out
Really.
there in the drink section. And again, you look at it, they don't really add added sugar. They might
Yeah.
have like 5 grams of sugar in there, and they have prebiotics in there,
Right.
maybe both.
Yeah, I think no, I think they both have prebiotics. I think they're big on like prebiotics.
But I'm saying maybe they have pro and prebiotics in there. I'm not sure,
You're
but
right. I'm not
anyways,
sure either.
just something like that. You look, so it's like you drink a kombucha, you're like, oh, I can't do this. It's whatever. But that's kind of how I was at the beginning. I
Right.
was like,
Yeah,
oh, I'm not a big
exactly.
fan of this. But now, it's kind of like alcohol. Like
Yeah.
when you first start drinking alcohol, most people are like, this is disgusting.
Yeah.
But once you keep drinking it, then it's like, oh, it's whatever. But
Yes. And going back to the good fats, I love you for bringing that up. I was reading some studies again about the Mediterranean diet because the Mediterranean diet is characterized by high fat intake. And when they were looking at a study conducted, saw 3 different sample groups. So one was doing the Mediterranean diet with an additional supplementation of olive oil every day. One was doing the Mediterranean diet with an additional supplementation of mixed nuts every day. And the third group was just educated on nutrition, and they were actually educated to reduce fat intake. The 2 groups that did the Mediterranean diet, both the ones with the additional olive oil as well as the mixed nuts, were seen to have improved cognitive function at the end of the study. So, for everyday life, what does that mean? That means that we're thinking better. That means that we're able to concentrate easier. That means that we are able to remember things a little bit easier. And therefore, we can do more because we are not experiencing some of those brain fog symptoms or feelings of just tiredness, forgetfulness, things like that.
yeah.
So not only in everyday life right now, even for us in our 20s and 30s, but think about as we age and we get into our 50s and our 60s, and we're looking at other more extensive neurocognitive diseases like dementia, Alzheimer's disease. They are showing within these studies that, again, I'll post for you guys at the bottom, that there's a link between decreasing our risk for those things while we are consuming a Mediterranean diet. So it's amazing.
Yeah, and Courtney and I have worked in a lot of nursing facilities, so we
Yes.
see. I mean, we've dealt with people with Parkinson's, dementia, Alzheimer's, and it's terrible. It's
It's
hard to
really
see.
sad.
It's hard on the families, and if you know anybody out there with dementia, I mean, it's tough. And again, it's not saying that this is just the easy, like, okay, this is definitely going to be the, you're not going to get dementia,
Right, right. We're not, yeah.
but starting in your 20s, 30s, 40s of, being aware, okay,
Right.
what is causing these, chronic diseases and these,
Yeah,
terrible,
neurodegenerative
exactly,
decline. Yes.
the decline of, when you're getting older. And, we're seeing it in people who are 60 some years old now,
Yeah,
with
young.
the diets nowadays and everything. So, um,
Right. And that's why I like that you brought that up because, again, as I mentioned in the beginning of this episode, we are not registered dietitians. We're not over here prescribing you any meal plans. We are just bringing you the evidence, the facts to make those decisions for yourself. People always say to us, stay within your scope, right? So again, I shouldn't be prescribing meal plans, but if I work with people with dementia every single day, if I see this rate of Alzheimer's disease increase, I think it's perfectly within my scope of practice to educate the general population on the research that's out there that's showing that there are things to do to decrease your risk. Exactly like you said, John. Just because you may be eating the Mediterranean diet doesn't mean that you are immune from getting dementia. Unfortunately, we wish it was like that. But these are ways to decrease your risk of getting those diseases.
yeah.
So it goes hand in hand with therapy. Same thing with when we think of cognitive decline and we think of forgetfulness or confusion, we see an increased fall risk, right?
Definitely.
So then they're going to be coming right to us again for that same therapeutic
All
intervention.
connected.
It's all connected. And, we are trying to help you guys get to it before it gets to that point,
Yeah.
right? We want to see you be taking those initiatives and planning those meals and seeing like, okay, maybe I can make a few swaps, right?
Yeah.
There are lots of things out on the market nowadays, like John said with the Ollie Pops, even some, low sugar snacks or, snacks with better ingredients. Yes, they might be a little bit more expensive, but if you're feeling better, if you are thinking better and you're being able to work harder and do more,
Yeah,
you
no,
know,
it's
that
funny
even
because it's
balance.
like you want to pay a little bit extra for, this, the healthier snacks and the
Mm-hmm.
healthier options, or do you want to pay extra for the medical bills and the
Yes.
ibuprofen that you're just going to keep popping? It's tough because I feel like a lot of patients that I see, that's just what they do.
Right,
They're like,
right.
all right, I'm gonna, eat this and drink this, do whatever I want, but then it's like, oh, why am I in pain all the time? Why am I sluggish all the time? Like I got to take my ibuprofen, I got to take my
Right,
whatever, this
yeah.
and that. So it's crazy. It's crazy to see, but
Exactly. So, like you said, even with our patients, we have some people that are chronically inflamed. And these studies are showing that these are anti inflammatory diets, right? Swapping out a few things, trying to add a few more fruits and vegetables in, trying to take away some of those processed foods um, is helping to decrease total body inflammation that will therefore go directly into your therapy.
yeah.
You will have a little less joint stiffness and discomfort because your body inflammation will be down and you'll be able to move better and you'll be able to do more and you'll be able to think clearer because you're able to do more and move more. So it's all this connected circle.
Yeah.
It's really amazing to see how different disciplines, right, can combine to really make that whole body experience. Hence the holistic travel therapy podcast, because we want to educate you guys on not only your physical health and your, therapy strengthening, but also mental health, overall well-being. I know it's hard with some social aspects, right? A lot of times you're out with your friends and everyone's getting pizza and wings and you're like, oh, I just listened to this great podcast. I don't know if I should be eating pizza and wings.
Yeah.
But it's all about that balance. Like
Mhm.
we said, if you're going to have something like that with your friends, enjoy it. Don't feel bad about it. But can you make better decisions the rest of the week? Can you make your next meal, a better meal for
Yeah.
yourself?
And I just want to end on one note because you kind of brought that up a little bit. Stress is a big thing, right?
Right.
So, and we're gonna do an episode, probably next week or the week after, on stress and just relaxation techniques, and we've talked
Yes.
about the breathing and stuff a little bit before,
Yeah.
but we're gonna do episodes on that. But a big thing is you don't want to over stress about it. So like
Yes,
you said, like if you're
exactly.
out, you know, you have a piece of pizza or a beer or whatever, like um, keeping your stress levels low is going to help both your gut and the brain. So whether you're doing a post meal walk to kind
Mhm.
of for a little stress
Yeah.
reduction, or you're doing some meditation or something like that, just it's really big because increased stress levels, increase IBS, increase inflammation,
Yeah.
all gonna
It's all
all bad
interconnected.
news for
Mhm.
the gut. So I know this podcast or this episode specifically is about nutrition and food, but you definitely want to keep those stress levels low. Eat in a stress-free environment,
Yes,
sitting
thank you.
down with
Yeah, yeah.
family and friends, sitting down with a partner.
Yes. So, you know, there's a wonderful new cookbook released recently from a man that John and I both really enjoy listening to in his podcast. His name is Sean. He's at the Model Health Show. So if you guys ever want to go listen to his podcast, they're amazing. But he came out with a new cookbook and specifically talks about the impacts of eating with family and friends and how that has such a protective impact on our health.
Yeah.
And that's one of the hallmarks of that Mediterranean diet actually is not only eating those certain type of foods, but eating with people that you care about, eating in a relaxed environment, not having the TV on, not multitasking and eating while you're driving or, eating really quick. It's like you said, John, in that relaxed environment. So let's give a few takeaways real quick before we end this episode, right?
Definitely.
Um, so go ahead
Yeah.
and start.
So fermented foods,
Yes.
fermented drinks. You want to get those probiotics, prebiotics, kombucha, sauerkraut,
Yogurt.
yogurt are the main ones that you can get. Obviously, if you take a probiotic, that's perfectly fine, but you also want to make sure you're getting it from other sources. Um, I just want to say, dark leafy greens, great,
Yes.
great food that have a lot of magnesium and nutrients that you need. Obviously, fruits, vegetables. Kind of staying away, obviously, from the processed foods, but
Yes.
also, you don't want to eat a lot of red meat. You don't want to eat a lot of, steak, burger, stuff like that.
Yeah. So again, I would say reducing your intake of those highly processed foods is going to be huge. That's going to be number one. Anytime where you can swap for more fruits and vegetables, more, like you said, fish, healthy fat, and focusing on a balanced plate. I love the saying, eat the rainbow. So making sure that you are getting in those leafy greens, those bright colored fruits, incorporating a little bit of everything into your everyday. And again, it's sometimes I like to think of it as over a week. So what are you getting in consistently over the week, right? Sometimes it's not just a day-to-day thing. So if you are struggling with, some of the issues we talked about today, guys, brain fog, gut health issues, even, increased pain and irritability, moods, see if you can implement some of these techniques. So that is our challenge to you this week, guys. See if you can make one healthy swap, whether it is for a beverage or a food, and try to go for that. Maybe it's different than what you're used to, but that alternative that is going to impact you in the long run.
Yeah, maybe drinking a water instead of a soda, just something
Yes.
like that. Something small at first because it'll add up, and
Right.
then a change will become a habit, right?
Yes,
So
exactly, exactly.
that change will become a habit. Just start having water, or you start having you know uh, a black coffee instead of a high sugar latte, something like that.
Yeah.
Um,
And again, you don't have to make, that's a perfect example. You don't have to go from your double mocha frappuccino to black coffee. All
yeah,
right.
yeah, yeah.
That's like,
Small steps, baby steps.
yeah. So you can go to something still sweet, just not as sweet, and slowly start to taper off. And again, if you're not a big fruits or vegetable person, like do what my parents did for me when I was a kid. Maybe sprinkle a little bit of cheese on it.
Yeah.
Maybe put
Or make a little smoothie. That's what I
right,
do. You know what I mean?
make a little smoothie. So there's ways that you can add these foods in without sacrificing taste or your quality of life.
Definitely.
So we challenge you guys to do that this week. We know it's not easy, so please post any questions or comments you have below, and we will do our best within our scope of practice to answer those questions.
Yeah, and also let us know. You know what I mean? Like, like
Yeah,
we said at the very first episode, we want to hear from you as well. So what do you do? What changes have you made specifically to your diet or nutrition in the last, year or so, that has helped you or maybe not helped you? So
right.
we love to hear that because we want to, continue. That's why we do so much research and, listen to the podcast and everything. We want to continue to learn. We want to help us. We want to help other people.
Exactly.
So we're all in this together.
Yes. Thank you guys so much for tuning in today. We will see you next week.
See you next week.